I'm delighted to introduce today leading dental specialist solicitor Jonathan Tyson of Knights plc. Knights are a legal and professional services company, and it's my very great pleasure to have a chat to you today, Johnny. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you, Lily. Thank you for inviting me. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very busy, and I know you are as well. We know that with all the deals that we currently have in flight. Johnny, first of all, let's start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your role and the company Knights.
As you rightly said, Knights. Our aim really is to be the leading legal and professional services business outside of London, and we're building and growing to achieve that. My role within the business is as a partner. I work in the corporate team with a very specific emphasis on the healthcare sector and dental sector in particular. We don't have team leaders at the moment. We decided that was a role that we wanted everybody to be equal in terms of who the partners are, and therefore, but I guess I sort of take on the role of coordinating the healthcare team within Knights, and certainly on the dental front. The team is there's 9 of us who run transactions from start to finish, and would do the same role as me. And then obviously we bring in other members of the wider team to help with those transactions as and when necessary. So the number of people that we've probably got working on dental transactions on a day-to-day basis is probably around 30 people.
That's very good to hear, because I know for a fact that one of the key things we do for our clients is recommend that they absolutely hire a dental expert solicitor, and also a company that has the ability to deal with all aspects of a sale, because as we know, there's lots of components. It's like a jigsaw, isn't it? You know, you may have NHS, it may be an incorporated business, property, premises, lease, and then you've got all the HR issues. And I know that one of the benefits that Knights bring is that you have someone there that can deal with anything that crops up, as well as the general body of a deal. And that's very important, isn't it? Rather than having to outsource and then wait for a third party coming in.
I think so. I think, you know, where we benefit and probably where we differ from a lot, if not all, of our competitors is the sort of size of our business and the number of resources that we can call upon to help with the transaction, but also the different areas that we can cover without needing to go and outsource it. So, for instance, we've got in-house tax expertise as well. Planning expertise and things like that as well, which not every law firm has. So I think, you know, that's something that is very important. And I think what I would also say is that because we've got such strength in depth, it doesn't really matter how many transactions we're dealing with at any one time. You know, we've got enough people with enough capacity in the team to be able to maintain the high levels of service and the speed and efficiency in which we like to work, regardless of the number of transactions that we've got.
Well, that's what I like to hear, Johnny, and that's the reason why, obviously, we send clients to you, because it's so important. And obviously, if you're under pressure and you can't deal with a transaction, and there's enough delays, as we know, with lots of transactions, lots of things can come out of the woods and delay something. But it's so important, isn't it, to have that coverage and that ability, if you're off sick, if you're on holiday, or if you're just overwhelmed with the workload, knowing that you've got a team around you that can pick it up. And that's very important, and the communications as well. So come on then, let's talk about the state of the market. You know, we're coming through. You know, as I said on our previous podcast, the green shoots of recovery are out there for people, without a doubt. We are extremely busy, and I know you guys are too. What's your view of the state of the market right now?
Clearly, this time last year and going into the original lockdown, you know, things were very different. You know, there was deals falling away, there was completions not happening. And, you know, as a team, I would say we were probably April, May time, we were not twiddling our thumbs, but we were wondering what we might do next. Once practices opened in June, things really started to recover, I think. And where we see ourselves now, I think, is where we would expect to be, if not in a better place. And what I mean by that is, in terms of the level of enquiries that we're getting, and obviously, no small part of that is due to yourselves, which we're very grateful for. But inquiry levels in general are normal, if not more than we would expect, and the number of transactions that we're dealing with at the moment is certainly where I would expect to be this time in a normal year, if not slightly more. I think what has helped everybody in the sort of corporate transactional field is the budget that's just gone. The furore around whether there was going to be changes in CGT or not made people stop and think and try and get transactions done when perhaps under normal circumstances they might not have done them so quickly or might not have done them at all. But I think aside from that anyway, the transactional market is very buoyant. There's a lot of hungry buyers out there. I think what you will have seen and what I've seen over the last few years is there's a lot greater number of serious buyers out there who want to build groups, and we're seeing that as well. I think probably what the last 12 months has done has made people think about what they want to do with their practice if they own a practice, and consider seriously whether actually they might just sell it, and that's regardless of their sort of age, I think. Whereas traditionally, most sellers are probably looking to retire.
The profile has changed, and the landscape's changed. We're seeing a lot of associates buying, which has been very good. So we have had an enormous amount of sales to first-time buyers, a real spike in those, and obviously you must have seen that as well. You're educating them in all the things that they need to know about buying a dental practice, the whole transaction. And as you say, sellers are reevaluating what their options are. Now, work levels, how are you managing at the moment with the general work levels to cope with this spike? It may flatten out, but at the moment we're not seeing much abatement in that. What are you seeing?
I would say in terms of the number of hours that we're doing across the team, we are, probably 80% sort of occupied in terms of our daily number of hours recorded and things like that. So I would say there's still capacity within our team, but what we've got, and what Knights does for us really is that if we do have a need for recruitment, then the options are there to look at that sort of thing. But at the moment, no. What we do is we genuinely do work as a team. We have regular meetings, obviously in these circumstances, still via Zoom or things like that, but to discuss work levels and things, so that actually that nobody within the team is absolutely flat out and other people are less busy. We even it out across the team in terms of the numbers of transactions that people are dealing with, so that actually we've got a good spread across the team of how busy people are, but also with the aim of making sure that everybody's still got capacity to take on new work. Sometimes,
as we know, somebody gets a good reputation for delivering a great service, and then they become overwhelmed with work. And the next thing is that somebody that you previously relied on to be absolutely red hot and all over it and dealing with everything and keeping to the schedule that we try so hard to keep on track, so that the deal doesn't delay to such a degree that transaction fatigue kicks in, that old chestnut. Yeah. But then that person becomes so busy, so popular, they get so much work that actually they become difficult to work with, and then you start to get negative feedback. So it's good to hear that you share the work, even though somebody might come to you, for example, and say, I definitely want to work with Jonathan, but it's good to know that if the work pressure becomes so great that you will share that load, and that's really good because, as we know, the time spent for a deal to complete is still far too long. We could dedicate a complete day to talking about why and whose fault
We
it
certainly
is.
could. We certainly could. No, I think it's important. I mean, my aim has always been that I don't want the work that we do in the dental sector as nights to be all about me. And the more people that I can introduce in the team to clients and the likes of yourselves, the better, really, because those relationships build as well. I mean, what I always try and do is make sure that I am involved in a transaction if I've been referred to specifically, because I think that's an expectation of a client who's spoken to you in the first instance, and also from your point of view. But on, in order to maintain the levels of service and things, we bring other people in to help us with transactions so that there's no danger of us being the reason that the transaction is slower than people would like.
Absolutely, and that communication is so important, isn't it? Nobody wants to ever phone up when they have a query or a concern and be told, I don't know, he's not here and I don't know about it. And that's something that we very much impress upon on our team, is responsiveness and always having somebody that can help you if that one person that they work with isn't available. So that's really good.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the NHS for a moment. What are you seeing in relation to the increased NHS targets? That they've got to be met this financial year. There must have been a huge fallout for you and all kinds of deals in jeopardy.
Until the way that the NHS had decided to deal with the last 12 months effectively was communicated to everybody. Clearly there was a lot of uncertainty, and we were having to build pretty general indemnities into documents without knowing the specifics to try and cover everybody until the NHS made the decision in order to try and get transactions done, rather than saying, well, we can't complete it now because we don't know quite what's going to happen with the NHS. Thankfully we do know now, and it's taken some different drafting from our point of view to add into documents to deal with how the payments are going to work and things. But we feel like we've got some good documents in place to cover every eventuality. But I mean, what it's done in terms of the market and in terms of transactions that we've had is yes, you're right. It's created a an unnecessary complication when you're coming towards the end of a transaction, I think, is probably the best way of putting it. We've not had any transactions that have not continued or not completed as a result of it, but we've had a lot of extra debate around it, and actually different interpretations. We had one just last week that we were trying to complete, and we've got two different interpretations from the sets of solicitors on what the NHS calculations mean and how they're calculated. So and that took some sorting out, which wouldn't have ordinarily needed doing. No. So I think it's nice that we've got some certainty in what they're doing. I mean, I think the question still is going to arise as to what's going to happen moving forward, and whether in fact anybody gets a breach notice at all for the last 12 months, regardless of their performance. I mean, who knows really? All we've got to do is keep our ears to the ground and be on top of when any formal notices are given on that front, and just tailor our documents accordingly so that we've covered every eventuality.
You talk about breach notices, but my goodness me, can you imagine if they were to start issuing them? I mean, it would be a veritable confetti, wouldn't it? I think that
I can't believe that they can. Neither
could I, but let's never say never.
One thing that I've learned, since working with dentists since 2006 is that you never quite know what the NHS are going to say. No. Even if you've got precedent from them before for doing one thing, you can never quite guarantee that they'll do that again.
Yeah. Have you always been in dental legal work, Johnny, or have you ever done other aspects of law?
No, I mean I've done general corporate work and I still do to a certain extent, but not. It's certainly not the majority of my work. But yeah, I qualified in 2004. And then in 2006, the firm that I was with at the time, we knew that the NHS contracts were going to change at that point. So we got to grips with the new contracts as they were then, because we saw that it was going to be a good opportunity to specialise in transacting dental practices. So I've done my majority of work since then in buying and selling dental practices, but no, we do any type of corporate transaction within the team if required. But as I say, certainly since I joined Knights, which is 6 years ago now.
So you've pretty much seen. Well, I always hesitate to say you think you've seen it all, because every day is a school day in our world, and if I had £1 for every time somebody on our team says you won't believe what's happened this week, and you think you've seen it all, heard it all, read it all, or had it happen in a transaction. But we almost ought to write a book, oughtn't we, about the kind of things that can cause a deal to falter or cause mistrust, unrest, and then the deal to all the wheels to come off, as I say. But I would imagine that you've pretty much seen most things that can come out of the woodwork. It's just trying to preempt that, isn't it? And I know we work really hard, and I don't think we've shared it with you yet, but we have an enormous a checklist to go through with everybody on the point of a sale and that introductory call that we have with a transaction, and try and cover off every base you can, but there will always be something. And of course with the NHS, those variances coming in, and I think that things can really affect a deal to such a degree. So it's just more time, it's more work for everybody, and a lot of stress, isn't it?
You know, preparation for a sale can't be understated, I think, and that's where I think that perhaps we can work even closer on things. Is you know, as much as it helps our interest in being engaged early with a client, I think there's a lot of work that can be done to prepare for a sale. So, you know, as soon as the practice is launched effectively, I think, you know, and I know you are very good at doing that. I just think we could do it more between us, in terms of really getting to know a seller or sellers sooner, and looking at what they've got, you know, getting due diligence prepared, but also looking at things like the CQC registration or their NHS contract and things like that. Preparatory work that we can do before a buyer's even on board can help with the timescales. I know we touched on earlier the number of different things that can halt a deal, and lots of things that are beyond yours or my control. But I think, you know, the things that are within our control are certainly having a different eye on a practice and on the documents can help. And
not just waiting for it just to come up, and because sometimes when things occur, you just think, why did nobody see that coming? Why was that question not asked? You know, and it's about that ability, and we are working very. We're virtually at completion now. We've reviewed the sort of review document that we share with our buyers and sellers and their solicitors. So we'll be sharing that with you shortly. So I look forward to Abby bringing that to you, and how we can get communication levels going and get everybody singing off the same song sheet, but more importantly, understanding what's required of them in order to get a deal through in a timely fashion. Trends in the market. Are you seeing any trends out there right now?
As you said, I think you know, a lot of first-time buyers, and probably more than I would normally see. I think what the last 12 months has done for associates is made them think, actually, I'm probably safer buying my own practice rather than, you know, relying on the income that I get as an associate dentist for working for somebody else. I think the corporates are very active. Well, a number of them are very active.
We are seeing a huge, yes, I mean, it's business as usual for us, for sure. And we are, as you know, you've been managing some of them, for us. We've got some very substantial sales going through. But also we've seen quite a few new entrants to the market with people with substantial funding looking to start a dental group. So COVID hasn't frightened them off. If anything, it's almost whetted their appetite, or any plans they had, they were put on hold, but they're very much back now. And I'm probably working with 3 or 4 different entities, groups that are looking to plant their flag in the dental world and make a start. And they have very big plans. Now, of course, who knows how well that will ultimately end. As we know, sometimes people come in with a bang and they go out with a whimper. Others, nonetheless, make a very good niche, and they end up growing. Often not as quickly, though, as they thought they would.
There is a lot more interest from sort of private equity. Whether that's private equity wanting to buy an existing small group of practices and build from there, or whether it is actually private equity looking to start up a venture and move forward. We've had a number of discussions recently on all those fronts, and with serious private equity people who've got serious pedigree in healthcare and the wider sort of corporate sphere, looking at dental as a serious option. And I think that's only good for us. We've seen some groups who've taken private equity investment, who now want to effectively motor on and buy at a greater rate than they were buying. Some of which are clients of ours. You're also seeing what you're also seeing, I think, is a bit of movement in sort of terms of personnel within the market.
Yes.
And particularly within the sort of stuff that we do. I don't mean dentists. I mean, on the professional side, and when people starting to work with groups who've previously been at other groups, and actually that's a sign that those groups want to build even quicker than they were doing, and therefore are recruiting to do that. And I think that's a great sign for the likes of you and I, because it means that the transaction levels are high and continue to be high, and are looking like they're going to be even more voluminous.
It's a healthy sign, and the people, the creme de la creme, are being selected. They're moving around, and of course that's what we want to see in our industry. What we don't want to see is people leaving in droves like rats, diving off a sinking ship, moving into veterinary and optical and pharmaceutical.
Indeed.
I think the signs are genuinely very good, very healthy. It's a good time for buyers, but it's also a good time for sellers. And I think overall the market is strong. It's growing. Obviously, there's still some recovery there. Wounds are still being licked in a lot of businesses to recover from COVID, but I think that the spring and summer coming forward. I don't know when we'll all be back doing what we used to do, going to all the shows and all the rest of it. We've touched upon that. I know. I'm not sure people's appetite to go en masse to big events, but I think generally our industry has survived. Healthcare always will always do so, and I think it's looking good. So crystal ball time now, Johnny. What's the rest of the year looking like for you?
The next pinch points, I guess, from a work point of view, we've got the end of March, which is end of NHS contract year, which is usually probably one of the busiest times of the year from a transactional point of view, and I still think that's going to be the case, even though we've had a lot of transactions that completed pre-budget. We've still got a lot that are looking to complete by the end of March. From a Knight's business point of view, it's our financial year end at the end of April. So again, anything that we miss out on completing at the end of March, there'll be a big drive on to try and get that completed by the end of April. I think looking at the wider picture, I see a lot of positivity. I think, the market continues to be very strong. So I see that we will continue to have a similar number of transactions as we do now, if not more. I guess there may be some further races on in terms of the autumn statement, and whether people are wary about what new stuff might come in that, and whether that focuses people's minds to say, well, look, now we definitely need to get it done before the autumn statement. Other than that, I think, in terms of the team, as a business, we sort of halted recruitment unless it was partners with a following during the main element of the pandemic. But now I think we're looking at the team, and we're looking at the work levels, and actually we're saying to ourselves, now might be a good time to look at whether we can recruit as well. We hoped that we might be able to recruit somebody a few weeks ago, but unfortunately they decided to take up another offer. But I think that's a good sign that that we were able to demonstrate to our business that we could justify that. So I think that's something else that we will look at. And I guess, it's, once we can get back to some sense of what we would normally be doing, I think the year looks like, hopefully, catching up with people in the flesh as well. Whether that's clients or people such as yourselves. I think, from a personal point of view, and the rest of the team, we're all screaming to go out and see people. We've got very good relationships with lots of people, but I think you can only really cement those relationships or build on them once you see people in the flesh. And
I agree.
Whether it be having a coffee with them or dinner or whatever, or just seeing them, I think there's going to be a lot of clambering for that, and we're all looking forward to being able to do that.
I can endorse that one. I'm certainly looking forward to it, and being able to travel freely and just do all the things that one takes for granted. But that's great. Look, Johnny, it's been really lovely talking to you. I really appreciated your time today, and I would love to talk to you again, perhaps in a couple or 3 months' time, just to see how the market pans out. And I know that there's a whole variety of subjects that we can discuss, which deals more with the thorny issues of a sale transaction. So what we'll do is we'll come up with a few key things that will catch people's attention to talk about in a transaction point of view. But it's been really lovely today just to get a good overview of how you are, how life is at Knights and the team. Do send them all my very best. Thank you once again. It's been really delightful.
Well, thank you very much for asking me, and no, as we've said before, I'd be delighted to do further ones on
Lovely.
Whatever topics we decide. But no,
don't worry, I'll throw something your way. Thanks very much, Johnny. Goodbye now.
Bye.